Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 2482, and today, 2 got us 7 Glitch in the Matrix stories. So remember to like, share, subscribe, and of course comment. But you can wait till the end for that Sunday word. So, turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I gritted my teeth and held my broken arm as I told the genie, I wish everyone in town knew how horrible and evil my husband is. Nothing changed. My missing makeup brush appeared underneath me 8 months later. By coutureee. Okay, this happened quite a few years ago. I read the flowchart and it's appropriate to post here. But just to confirm, I was over 18. Not under the influence of anything. Wasn't tired, etc. I had been living across the country and had just moved back to my hometown. I was going to rent a room from a couple, but they ended up being creepy and inappropriate. To give me time to figure out where I was going to live, I stayed with family friends. It was fall, and they wanted to take me to do something fun, so we went to this place called Apple Hill. It's a few hours away from where we live. We stayed overnight at a hotel. I had brought a gold set of MAC makeup brushes my aunt had given me. When we got back home, I realized I couldn't find one of the brushes. I checked my bag and the floor of the truck we drove in super well. I assumed it must have fallen out of the truck, somehow rolled away in the hotel room, even though we looked under the bed when we left, something my paranoid mom taught me to do. It was a bummer, but we moved on. Fast forward 8 months. In that time, I had moved back east because I couldn't find anywhere to stay after the weird roommate situation. And I couldn't stay with our family friends long term. Then I found a good roommate and moved back again. The reason I mention all of this is because I did not find or have any lost makeup brushes in that time. Keep in mind, my makeup bag was very small, and I would have seen it. I had just moved into my new apartment. I was 20 and hadn't acquired any things yet. I had 0 furniture, like not even a bed frame yet. My room literally just had a mattress. So one afternoon, I was laying on the floor on my stomach, just messing around on my laptop, looking at social media, Pinterest, that kind of thing. I got up at some point to go to the bathroom, and when I stood up, I saw the missing makeup brush just lying there in the spot I had been lying. I was shocked and felt insane. It was not there when I laid down. My floor was spotless, so there was nothing it could have been hiding in or under. I wasn't wearing anything with pockets that it could have fallen out of. I also didn't feel a lump or anything underneath me when I was lying there. There is 0 possible explanations. Anyway, such a weird and random glitch to have happened. It drives me nuts to think that I'll probably never understand how or why it happened. The neighbors in my apartment complex have a Halloween decoration on their door that screams when it senses motion. I don't know what's worse, that it screams when seemingly no one is around, or that it doesn't scream when I walk by. I've had at least 3 close calls while driving that I'm convinced were too close. By RLYoshi. I've had this happen 3 distinct times, several years apart. First was when I was an idiotic 16-year-old. I had recently gotten my license and was driving myself and my little sister home from school. I was cocky and tried showing off for her, turning up the music, headbanging for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes, I remember being a moment away from hitting a parked car. The very next moment, I was 2 blocks away where I had turned onto the street. I pulled over in a panic, and my sister asked me why I was stopping. I asked her about that moment at least 10 years later. She said she doesn't remember me headbanging or the music being loud, just wondering why I was stopping so far from home. Second, I was driving to a music festival when I was 20. The festival was a 3-hour drive away, and I went with 2 friends, one of which said we could take his new white Mustang. It was super early, and he said he was up late the night before, so he insisted that I drive. As we neared the festival, I got on a windy inner-city highway on-ramp, and I couldn't see the approaching traffic very easily, and I wasn't familiar with driving in this area. So I treated it like any other on-ramp, and I swear we got hit by a semi that I saw last minute. But the next instant, I was at a complete stop at the end of the on-ramp, with a semi crossing in front of us. I'd never brought that up with the other 2 since I was driving someone else's new car, and it felt wrong to mention. And finally, I was in my early 20s and remember driving across the state with my sister, on our way back from visiting family. It was late, probably about 10 p.m. I was in the left-hand lane, and someone came up on me faster than I anticipated. It passed me on the right as I saw another car approaching quickly. I moved to the right-hand lane immediately as the first car passed me to get out of the way of the second car. I hear a loud grinding sound as I hit the black trailer the first car was pulling, only to blink and see the first car and the trailer were well ahead of me. There was no damage on my car, and my sister didn't see or hear anything weird once again. I'm at the point where I try to avoid driving if possible. I rather offer to just pay to help someone cover the cost of gas if it meant I don't have to drive. I've been sitting on these for a while now, and I think about them pretty regularly whenever I'm on a long road trip. As I stare at the man who ruined my life, as I plunged my knife into his chest, I realized something. The man who ruined my life had blue eyes. Woke up in a different place after a seemingly normal day. My mustache. Normally, I just lurk, but this stuff is too weird for me to just brush off. I live alone in an apartment for most of the day. My older sister only comes home after 6 if she's not staying with her boyfriend for the weekend. A few weeks ago, on the 25th of last month or so, I was alone for the day, playing some ranked egg packs with 2 friends. After they got off to go to work for their night shifts, everything kind of felt like dread. I didn't hear anything after they got off, but I just brushed it off. The area where I live is just oddly empty sometimes because of the lack of jobs in the area. I hadn't been outside or even opened the blinds all day, so I had no real idea what it was like outside. I did my normal things for the rest of the day, worked on my novel, took a shower, eating, etc. Then I went to sleep at around 7 or so. I had pulled an all-nighter for the previous 2 nights, only getting about 4 hours of sleep between the 2 days though, and about a dozen short naps. Ever since I woke up the next morning, everything in my house has been different. Stuff is in my room that I don't remember existing. I ran into a woman who supposedly knew me for a few years when we were kids, but I have little memory of it despite her saying that we were very close-knit. The agreed-upon place for the TV remote in the living room is different all of a sudden. It used to be on the coffee table, and now it's in the arm stand on the couch. The couch is different too. It has a central console thing that wasn't there before my nap. My sister keeps going on about this trip to London we supposedly used to do every year from my time in high school, but I don't remember it, once again. There's too many things that have changed or slightly differ for me to believe that I just lost some memories. If things keep running like this, I'm thinking about getting myself set up for a CAT scan or just go to a psychologist. Thought you guys might enjoy hearing about it though. Update. As of 14th of October, I booked 2 appointments with my primary physician 4 days before the post. One for a CT and MRI, and another for a psych evaluation. I had to go nearly 3 hours out of my home city to get a checkup done ASAP. Both tests came back clear. I did ask my physician about what could have happened to me without resorting to believing reality has broken itself. His best guess was an acute dissociation amnesia attack related to stress or some sort of post-surgery medication I got off around the same time frame as the reality flip. Still not sure what to think. Maybe getting a few more tests run in a few more weeks. A revolutionary new drug enables people to stay awake indefinitely, with no side effects. Within a week, it was decided the economy would collapse if people didn't work 20 hours a day. Gone But Not by Alexxisvapes. Warning before this story starts, there is talk of drug use. If you do not wish to hear this story, please skip to the next one. Timestamps are down below as always. When I, 30 female, was around 22, I had been very close to one of my friends. For the sake of ease, let's call him Chris. Of course, his name is changed for the sake of this. Chris and I were pretty much besties at this point. We graduated together, hung out almost daily. Chris, over the course of a few months, had developed a problem with substance abuse. He used it daily. Whilst gaming, he decided he wanted to toke, as usual. I politely declined and told him that stuff would kill him, and watched over him as he rode his abuse out. Now, while Chris was in this state of mind, he'd get very out of it, i.e. fall asleep standing and nearly collapsing, speaking so incoherently you'd not be able to make out a single word, and the rare but terrifying occasion, stop breathing. I made sure to watch him until he came down, but needed to leave. I asked him not to smoke again until I was able to hang around, and of course he agreed, but didn't follow through. Roughly 2 hours go by, and I get a phone call from Chris's mother. I felt my heart drop into my stomach and my throat tighten. When I answered, I was told that Chris had a really bad seizure, and they found him with a pipe still in his hand. They guessed that when he stood up to try to get help, he fell and cracked his head on the table that he was sitting at, and he had passed. I dropped everything I was doing right then. I got in my car and drove to his house. When I got there was no signs of any kind that anything was amiss. I went and knocked on the door, knowing that his mom's car was gone. When the door opened, my blood ran cold. Chris was standing there, pipe in hand, and simply asked, "Hey, what's up? Thought you'd be gone for the rest of the day." I went in with him and explained everything through sobs and asked him if he'd switch from the synthetic stuff to real. Don't judge me. I knew he wouldn't flat out quit. He did agree to that. To this day, I don't know what happened. My phone even still had the call from his mom, even though she swore she'd never called me. Her phone didn't even have an outgoing call. The logical explanation would be that she was worried and made a really messed up fake call to make me go check on him, but she didn't even know he was using synthetic stuff. Regardless if anyone believes this, it's still one of the worst things I've ever felt. and by far one of the strangest glitches I've ever experienced. I've had a few others, but nothing else this wild. Low on oxygen and disoriented from swimming around the dark cave system for hours, I swam forward furiously as I finally saw a light up ahead. Entering the chamber, I saw light coming from flashlights on the cave floor, the floating corpse of the fellow divers who found the same dead end as me. I think I stepped into a parallel universe for a moment. By 17 Demons. This happened when I was around 18 or 19, but I remember it vividly because of how jarring and confusing it was. I've had a few odd experiences with dreams, but nothing in the middle of the day like this. So when this happened, I was still living at home with my parents, and we lived in my childhood home. This home was pretty much all I ever knew, as we had moved there when I was but 3 years old. I had a habit of going on a daily walk in a nearby park, something I did every single day since I was about 14 or 15 years of age, and I kept doing it until I moved out. It was a summer, around 1 or 2 p.m., and I went to leave the house for one of my walks. I slipped on my shoes, went to open the door as usual, but when I stepped out of the house and looked up, my neighborhood felt completely wrong. It didn't look different. Everything looked exactly the same as it usually did. The small ravine next to our house, the tree in the front yard, the steep driveway, and our neighbors' houses. All of it looked completely normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something really wrong and different with it all. It felt as if reality was warped or something. I stood on the front porch for a minute or so trying to figure out what felt so incredibly wrong with my neighborhood. After a while though, I figured I was just being silly and made my way down the driveway. When I was about halfway down, my neighbor who was tending to his garden across the street looked up towards me, stared at me as if he had saw a ghost, his face going completely pale and opening his mouth to speak. Before I could stare at him in confusion, before he had gotten a single word out, I was back inside my house at my front door about to leave. I was completely shaken. I had no idea how I ended up back at my front door. I had no idea what I had just experienced, and when I pulled the door open, it was completely normal. Nothing felt wrong anymore. It was all normal. The only difference was when I opened my door again, my neighbor was not out front gardening. I decided to not go for a walk that day. Years later, I have no idea what I experienced. As weird as it sounds, the part that freaks me out the most is how wrong my neighborhood felt, despite looking exactly the same. So between the weird teleportation back indoors and my neighbor acting as if he was staring at a ghost, the feeling of wrongness is the thing that bothers me the most. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel like dread. It just felt like I was looking at a completely different version of my neighborhood at that moment, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. I never really told anyone about this, as I'm usually a pretty skeptical person, but I've had no way to explain this. Though I managed to keep my unsettled stomach down during the flight home from South America, as soon as I got out of the airport, I threw up. When I saw only shredded scraps of numerous balloons, however, I knew I was good as already dead. Only logical explanation is that we teleported. by dyselxiccarrot. This is a story that I've always wanted to share and have finally found a sub where maybe it will be taken seriously. Sorry for the length, but I'm including all the context and detail. This occurred in 2020 with COVID in full pledge. One of my best friends and I were back home from college and we were playing on a baseball team in Canada together that summer. We were only allowed to play on one team, and the team was located an hour and 15 minutes away while doing about 110 kilometers per hour from our town. We also did not have a bus due to COVID, and we drove ourselves to the games. This is also the town that my friend was originally from, so I had done this drive probably 100 times by this point. Another important note is that we would always time how long it would take us to get there or back, because sometimes we would go super fast and see how fast we could get there. Yeah, we were stupid kids, but we held the record with 37 minutes. You turn off the Trans-Canada Highway about 5 minutes after leaving our town, and onto this narrow, rural road. It's single lane, and nothing but farm/ranch land for the entire drive. The closest thing to civilization is the odd farmhouse you see way beyond a field. Also, about halfway through the drive, there is a coulee which you must go down and up. It's impossible to miss, as it's the only part of the drive where you have to touch your pedal, other than to pass. Otherwise, you risk 1. Veering into the river, which is at the bottom of the coulee by going too fast, or 2. By blowing out your engine due to the insanely steep hill. Another important note is that there's only one way to get between those two towns, and that is this single-lane highway. We got around the bend, but to our surprise, we did not see the coulee. But we were coming up to the main highway already. I looked down to see that we were only doing 110 to 115 kilometers per hour. That's when my friend and I checked the clock, which is when we realized the glitch in the Matrix. It was only 5:40. We thought there had to be some explanation, so I went to my friend's house where we arrived at 5:45. We thought maybe we just forgot the time, but another detail doesn't add up. My parents aren't home. We immediately call his parents and ask where they are because they left 30 minutes before us, but they replied saying they were only about halfway home. We interrogated them more. Did you guys stop? No. Did we pass you? No. In fact, we actually did not pass anyone the entire time. My foot never touched the pedals. We didn't go through the coulee, past people who left way before us, did a 150-kilometer drive in 20 minutes. And we have no clue how, unless all 4 happened to have a massive lap of memory at the same time. We even checked snap maps with the travel feature, confirming our trip lasted about 20 minutes. We still have no clue how we did an hour and 15-minute drive in 20 minutes, and we bring it up every now and then, still with zero explanation despite there being 4 witnesses for the event. I was enjoying my afterlife in the paradise when the angel told me I had to go back to my body, as the doctor successfully revived me. I cried in despair, knowing that I'd have to live in the vegetative state again. Glitch car accident and possible death/alternate reality by UlrikeLuvsAndreas. Okay, so let me preface this by saying since about 1999/2000, I've been getting accused of being places, having conversations I don't remember, etc. This other me always drives the same car I have, I think the two of us have been swapping back and forth for 2 decades. Until this past autumn, it hadn't happened for several years. Then in October, I was getting phone calls or people telling me later they saw me somewhere and that they were calling to me, but I ignored them. On to the main reason I came to post this. In November, I was in a horrible car accident. My BFF lives about a mile from me. We were leaving my house and heading to hers. She left about 2 minutes before me, her 12-year-old daughter with her. About a minute after I left, she called me telling me she was stopping at the gas station and that I needed to get out into the right lane because there was a really bad accident blocking the left lane. She says it's weird because one of the vehicles in the accident looks exactly like mine. We hung up right before I went through an intersection about 1/4 mile from the gas station and the intersection where the accident was. I set the phone next to me, and the next thing I know, I can only describe as my soul or life force being forcefully sucked back into my body. My left leg is pinned out of the dashboard, and the windshield is on top of me. I was somehow instantly transported 6 blocks to an accident that happened before I was even on that street. My BFF and her daughter say there's no way this could have happened because they passed the accident while on the phone with me. The people who stopped to help all said they didn't know what happened and didn't see anything. The street was full of cars. It was rush hour on a main street. When I say my van was totaled, I mean no one knows how I survived. I had to be cut out of it. Once I was out of the hospital, I started noticing little things just being off. I just can't put my finger on what it is that's not right. I feel like I'm in a different reality, be it ever so slightly different. I think maybe my alternate died and I lived. I don't know. But I can't figure out how the accident happened or how I went from one intersection to another in a split second. How my BFF and her 12-year-old daughter saw it while they were on the phone with me, telling me about it. This whole situation is driving me nuts. And maybe somewhere I have kids that are mourning their mother. Right before the accident was when several people said they saw me, and since the accident, no one has seen her. I don't know if anyone ever will. This is all just blowing my mind, and whenever I try to tell someone about it, they just look at me like I need a padded room and 24/7 mental health care. I'd probably think that too if I didn't have an independent witness. Edit. I absolutely can't believe I forgot this part. So, last year I filed my taxes and got my refund. Needed to file the admit and was told I get it by early August. August comes and goes and nothing. No one can tell me jack. I forgot about it. This whole time the van that was wrecked, I had a massive hole in the radiator along with other major things that weren't worth fixing. So the amendment was going to get me a new-to-me car. Well, accidents happen. I can't leave my house for 3 months due to the injury and panic attacks at the suggestion. February rolls around and in the middle of the night, I see an envelope on the floor next to my bed. I open it and it's the damned amendment check finally. No one knows where it came from and everyone swears it was never in the mailbox. Anyways, a few weeks prior to this, my BFF, same one from above, who works at a mechanic shop, casually mentioned she bought a 2001 Pontiac Aztek at a ridiculous price to resell there. My jaw drops. That vehicle is number 3 on my all-time list. I literally wanted one since 2001. It had one owner and was almost in brand new condition. I was fretting for 3 weeks how to get the money to buy it because they weren't going to hold it. Boom, comes the check. At that exact time, I can now leave my house, at that exact time that the car shows up. If I had gotten it back in August, I probably would have fixed the fan problems because it would have been easier and cheaper. So all that crap happens with the accident, and then this was my silver lining. A vehicle that was only manufactured for 5 years and barely sold any, and was touted as the car that killed Pontiac. Like, that was what made the whole thing even weirder. Plus, I paid half of what it was worth because of the hookup with my BFF. Basically paid for the repairs to it, and that the other owner didn't want to pay for. This car's gonna be buried with me, y'all. So, yeah, that's the weird ass, more than a coincidence, rest of the ending of the story. Sorry, I forgot all about this before. But there it is, in all its perfectly timed madness. And honestly, if it meant I end up with the Aztec, I'd do the whole thing over, broken body and never having answers. All of it. Edit number 2. Holy carp, I didn't expect this to get this many responses or awards. I know this hasn't blown up by Reddit standards, but I didn't think this many people would even bother reading all of it. I honestly posted this because I wanted to know if anyone else had a similar experience, and maybe not feel so alone. Thank you. You've all had so many great ideas and stories of your own. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories with me. I truly appreciate it. I don't feel as alone or crazy because of this. Sincerely, thank you. Me and my roommate used to play around and move things like dolls around when the other wasn't looking. It's been a month since she moved out, but yesterday the dolls moved again. And with that, we're near the end of this video. As always, I would like to thank the writers who let me read their stories. I really enjoyed them all as always. The main feeling I took from these stories, since winter is coming to the northern hemisphere of our planet, please remember to drive safe during winter. Where I am, we've already had a big snowfall to the point where I couldn't get my car away from my house. So please guys, remember, winter is not fun time driving, so please stay safe. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new and like spooky, scary stories, subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. Also, sharing this video/podcast with anyone who might enjoy these stories seriously helps. If you'd like to help in other ways, I do have a Patreon and YouTube memberships. For $1 a month, you get early access to these videos/audios, and there's extra bonuses as well. And I have merch and PayPal. None of this will ever be expected, but always appreciated, guys. Now, since Halloween's over and the chaos is done, let's get that comment, but get you that Sunday word first. On screen right now is everyone who left me a comment 3 weeks ago. Thanks, guys. Sorry for the wait. Now, on to this Sunday's word, which is rotation, which on screen right now is a definition, but really it means a few things that aren't here. So, if you're on YouTube or somewhere you can leave a comment, just leave me a comment down below using this word, and you'll be in next week's photo. If you're on the podcast, you can go to Twitter, adding 242 reads, and write me a sentence using this word, and you'll be in next week's video as well. But as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. It really means the world to me, and it's been pretty awesome to watch this channel and the podcast grow. Sleep tight, and don't let 42 bite.